Scott here. What is white privilege? Is it real? And how does it impact America? This video could just be some explainer that gives you the definition, but what you probably really want is an example and a story you can relate to. So that's what this video is, and in the end, you can tell me what you think white privilege is and if it exists. Sounds fair? The story I know the most? My own. If you've watched any of my videos from Cicero to de Tocqueville, you know I love history and genealogy, so I'm going to take you back a few generations and tell you my family's story. Like many white Americans, my ancestors came from different places and classes. I'm related to princes and paupers, and my ancestry is mostly Northern European. I had Anglo-Saxon relatives who protected their lands from other relatives like the Normans who conquered England. The earliest family member I could find that came to America was to Salem, Massachusetts in 1635, and he had a child there in 1636. I'll give you the textbook definition of white privilege before we go any further. White privilege is the unearned social, economic, and cultural advantages that white people often experience in societies structured by systemic racism, simply because of their skin color. Like many of you, my ancestors didn't just settle in one colony. Some lived in the American South, and for most people, probably you, your life and your children's life is a little bit better because of the work and effort you put into making it better, and the same can be said for most or our parents and grandparents down the generations. Understanding the lives of our ancestors and genealogy offers us a window to the past. It also is a great way of illustrating generational wealth. Most people in life, and as far as we know, most humans throughout time have evolved and advanced as time went on, individually, societally, and generationally. A secret family recipe, or an inheritance, can have long-lasting impacts that can span centuries. Just look at the aristocracy of England. Some of my family have prospered since 1066, when they smashed the heads in of some Anglo-Saxon. Life isn't a sport, and it shouldn't be treated like one. And I came to a realization about my own family. I've found some really impressive things on my family tree, like I'm related to Benjamin Franklin and Abraham Lincoln. I'm also related to Stonewall Jackson. So yes, my ancestors had slaves, and yes, based on the compounding effects of generational wealth, I may have unknowingly benefited from slavery. Think of it this way. If my family had slaves, they benefited from countless hours of unpaid labor, and because of that, they were able to save money. Now, here's where compounding interest comes in. And if you've ever read The Automatic Millionaire, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Compounding is basically money growing on top of money. Imagine you put $1 in the bank and it earns a little bit of interest. Next year, you don't just earn interest on the original dollar, you earn it on the dollar plus the interest. Then the year after that, you're earning interest on the new total. Over time, the growth snowballs. That's how regular people who follow advice in books like The Automatic Millionaire can slowly build wealth just by setting money aside consistently. Set it and forget it. I highly recommend the book, and I'll talk about that in a future video. But here's the thing. My ancestors didn't have to start from zero. They got that from everyone who's ever preceded them. And they got that head start because of unpaid labor. So their money started compounding generations before someone else even had a chance. So after years of passing down money, one family member at a time, it adds up. Even if no single person ended up wealthy, the advantage stacked. And even if my family doesn't have any generational wealth anymore, I don't know what happened to it, we still benefited in other ways compared to someone who might be a descendant of one of the slaves my family owned. For example, while my family in the American South had to rebuild after the war, at least most of the South had something to rebuild. Freed slaves didn't have anything. They didn't get reparations then. They never got their 40 acres and a mule. Imagine not getting paid weekly or bi-weekly or monthly, but once in your life and then being told you're not going to get that either. While my family was able to get a decent education and get better jobs because our family was middle class, that descendant's family spent generations just trying to get out of the poverty that victims still fall into. Redlining, segregation, all of these things impacted years of subjugation, inequality, racism, and murder. So, for many African Americans, slavery had, and for many, still has a negative impact on their health and quality of life. generational wealth loss by Jim Crow, racism, segregation, and voter disenfranchisement. And then there was redlining, forcing many blacks into worse neighborhoods and limiting how much they could make in equity, further contrasting the difference between white and black and richer versus probably poorer. I probably went to better schools because my parents and their parents lived in better neighborhoods with better tax bases that could afford better teachers. I didn't face the stress of hatred and discrimination that many face because of race and ethnicity, and that stress or lack thereof can have a huge impact on quality of life and life expectancy. Do you remember how I mentioned that weathered episode in our last video? It also talks about how stress is a contributing factor in death in cyclones. I mention it because stress can be deadly, and it's something we need to face as individuals and as a society. And compounding stresses, like worrying about if you'll have money for rent or if that next storm or fire is going to take your house, is real. Aren't those things the government should be helping us with? Dealing with the stress, not making it worse? Imagine how bad it was for the son of a slave, nothing to inherit, having to forge a new life, probably in a new city, facing constant discrimination and hatred along the way. Many of you feel like we're in the same position for very different reasons. I cover that in my series, Winners and Losers, where I discuss things like DEI and affirmative action. If you're interested in those topics, watch that next. So, what's your family story? Share it in the comments, and did you and your family benefit from white privilege? And if you don't know, you're missing out on your own history. So start your own genealogy journey for a better sense of who you are and how the decisions of your ancestors may have consequences to this day. The mission of my channel, The Renaissance Spirit, is engaging with history not as a distant past, but as a living dialogue, constantly informing and enriching our present, and we're a reminder of our dialogue with the future, our progeny and posterity, our legacy. If you don't know your story, it might be lost to history. You deserve better than that. Thank you for watching.